Hi, guys. Welcome to another interesting episode. We usually come up with this podcast series just to address those key areas, those possible sectors which the brands should look into or consider in order to, unlock their potential growth. Myself, Nishit, and I have been heading the sales for Krish TechnoLabs for the entire JAPAC region, and I'll be your host for today. Today, we are actually going to discuss and brainstorm on a very particular topic, which is marketing automation and customer segmentation in marketing automation. Right? These days, every brand is talking about data, personalization, AI, analytics, but there are very few brands out there who have really cracked the code and have, are offering those kind of hyper personalized experience to their end customers. But there are still a lot of brands who haven't really gotten in terms of how they should segment their customers or how they should leverage the data or the analytics that they have, right? So in order to deep dive further onto this, we have Riley with us today. Riley heads the partnership for dotdigital, and dotdigital is an all-in-one platform which helps customers and brands, unify their, experiences. Riley has been in this domain for the past 10 years and has a huge experience with assisting brands with their e-commerce strategies. So Riley, thanks again for joining us today, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Nishit. Really excited to be here. It's awesome to see this great initiative by Krish TechnoLabs. I think, this type of thing in the industry is really valuable. It's great to sort of have the chance to speak about these topics in sort of a long form format.
Right.
And just sort of really kind of delve into, I guess, the areas that really matter and what to really consider. So currently I'm been with dotdigital and certainly experts in this space. So I hope to sort of shed some light on, marketing automation, data, customer experience, and all things related to sort of segmentation and personalization beyond that.
That's awesome, mate. Thanks for that. We usually our goal is to probably unify the kind of content that is present online, but it's better that we have this content when we, speak together and when we brainstorm, we discuss about it. That's where we get kind of more understanding and insights on how exactly this can be useful for brands to adapt. And then obviously at the end of the day, tap those potential customers, right? Now, to start things off, what I would like to understand from you is what exactly and why it's important to have that customer segmentation done.
It's a good question, sort of like the inspiration for segmenting. So really, if we think about it, what works for brands typically, or as shoppers typically, is buying things that, that we really want at that timing.
Right.
We may have a set of criteria or needs or wants. And for brands, that's pretty hard to figure out if they're not really segmenting or doing the right things to get closer to that. So if you look at the market today, it seems that, there's all this conversation about data, and some brands have, a wealth of data that they're using. And other brands, almost have like all this data stored up in, lakes or mines, if you have an analogy like that, and they're sort of trying to leverage it and work out, how they can actually make it useful. And the thing is, we actually are at a stage now where you can make it really useful. Like the technology has become highly usable, quite easy to implement, very easy to measure. So customer segmentation really therefore is the first step towards delivering personalized marketing. So if we think at a really basic level, brands can actually get started very quickly with email, just shifting subscribers into smaller groups. You could put it on, as simple as age. It could be recency of their last purchase. It could be whether they have an account with you or not. But realistically, the number of segments that you can actually put customers into can be really anything depending on the types of data that you have. So it could be their interests, their behaviors as well, their preferences that they've opted in for, or even, content across the different websites that they've been viewing. And so
Right.
at dotdigital, we've really sort of pioneered for a long time in the email marketing space and have gone much beyond that. But just to give you a bit of a tidbit around, what happens when you start segmenting is that if you start doing that at a decent level, you can expect email marketing to actually offer you a $42 ROI for every $1 spent. So it's, very compelling.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And then the fact that you mentioned about, right? So that's every $1 spent, you get an ROI of $42. There are a lot of brands and experts right now which are, which are probably saying that email marketing is dead, and they are shifting their focus towards SMSs and chatbot, which probably tries to do the same. But what I still think is email marketing is probably the best, way possible for brands to communicate and share those, hyper personalized kind of content to their end customers. So definitely, aligned with you in terms of why brands should still focus on email marketing. Obviously, at the same time, they should be looking at SMSs and chatbots and all the other channels. But obviously, email is still, working for most of the brands out there.
Yeah, absolutely, Nishit. Like we see it dotdigital. We obviously are a multi-channel marketing automation suite, so we can deliver on all of those channels for our customers. But one of the things is that we do tend to find in our surveys and data that email still is sort of the dominant channel for best return and best way to engage your customers. Yeah, and it's pretty amazing to see that there's so many customers who are really not using email to its full potential, and that's probably where these probably where these stories come out of email marketing is dead or whatever. And it's basically what we see is brands might not have the right tools in place, or if they do have tools in place, it potentially is not integrated properly or not particularly easy to use. So they're sending out these generalized sort of emails to the whole sort of database, even to contacts that are totally inactive, which probably just makes them even more unhappy because they just see it as spam, Whereas if you actually are, actually segmenting it and tailoring the emails and really driving, different campaigns to loyal customers, different campaigns to inactive customers, different campaigns to certain age groups that might be interested in particular, short run products, for instance. All of this stuff is really, really powerful. And the more you're able to do that and the more that becomes the image of your brand in the market, the better that return becomes. So definitely a lot of legs on email.
Well, for sure. Now, in terms of the ways brands can utilize this segmentation. So what are the ways a brand can, have customer segmentation done?
Good question. So I think to sort of preface it, with segmentation, again, it sort of relates back to the data that you have on your customers. And so, many brands are sort of collecting data in the background, and, maybe it isn't quite usable or it doesn't have enough characteristics as yet. And so that's why I feel it's quite important to invest in a capable tool to actually help you with that process and organize that customer data. Yeah. So, with dotdigital, we look to make it really easy with our unified contact model, where simply a mobile phone number or simply an email is enough to unify all of the other associated customer data for that person. Either once you have one of those two things as the identifier. Sort of leading into the how, which was your question there. So firstly, I would say it's data collection and analysis. So with a good marketing automation tool such as dotdigital, you actually are able to sort of intake a lot of information such as demographics, browsing behavior, purchase history, different preferences, and so on, wish lists, etc. And so you actually are then building out detailed profiles. When you have these detailed profiles, the more detail you have, the more ability you can actually then segment those with common characteristics into targeted marketing campaigns. So that's probably the first thing to consider. And then, beyond that, it's really the types of segments that you might build or the sort of overarching themes for what you're actually doing with your segmentation. So one of the cool ones I think is hyper relevant at the moment is the behavioral segmentation. So this is pretty cool because you're really getting to know how your customer behaves by looking at things like what they're looking at online, tracking their online behavior, what they're actually clicking on, how much time they're spending on certain web pages and so on. So it can get pretty detailed.
Right.
And then other things as well, though. So what items they're adding to cart, what their abandoned carts are. Do they tend to buy things on discounts, or are they someone who likes to buy the newest and latest, or maybe it's a bestsellers or something like that? Things like wish lists and so on. And anything like this can be classified as behavioral segmentation. And so once you actually, building up this sort of library of data there, you can really segment on any of those. Next, there's also things like dynamic customer lists. So you can actually have lists that really are automated. So someone might have, abandoned cart. That sort of automated action of having an abandoned cart can trigger an email, or someone, may have been reviewing your discount. You've known that they've clicked through to their unique landing page regarding the discount. And you could target them again if they actually didn't follow through with that discount, maybe with a couple of the products that you'd seen them viewing.
Right.
A/B testing's a massive one. So segmenting based on those different target customers with different strategies. So you could have a couple of versions of the discount offers that you have available and test and find out, which is really landing with the segmented group that you've gone after. Same thing with pop over banners or bundle products that you might be recommending to certain people. So you can get pretty creative there.
Right.
And then, beyond that, there's really as creative as you want to get. So I've seen a lot of life cycle segmentation as well. So new visitors, returning visitors, one-time purchases, little customers. These are all totally different sort of buyer cohorts that you can go after, which is pretty cool. And then, one of the coolest ones that I've seen recently as well is the geographic segmentation. So we see a lot of that with dotdigital. So you've got those heat maps. Really kind of dragging and dropping the pin on the map around, based on a particular event coming up. You might know that there's a concert coming up in a city, all the Swifties are there, for example. So you might actually go out with a campaign to that particular geography and see how you go with that. So it's pretty exciting. Sort of pretty creative how you can get. So I feel like it's all about experimenting, testing and learning. But it's also a great way to fail fast and for really minimal impact in terms of the total cost. Compared to if you're launching, a traditional sort of media campaign out there.
Yeah, it's always a trial and error, right? So you define the customers based on the segments. And then you can see how it performs, if you are getting response out of it, if the customers are actually clicking on this and are landing to the pages. If they are able to make that purchase, that's a success for us, right? And then the geographic kind of segmentation that you mentioned, that's really interesting as well, because I'm now able to relate this as I've been shopping from a brand which has multiple outlets in Singapore, in Australia as well, in India. And they know that I've been actually buying from their, different locations as well. Thank you for tuning in today's episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Barry today. Found it really insightful. Stay tuned for our next episode where we explore more nuances of marketing automation, segmentations, and more with writing. Until then, take care and thanks again for listening. Cheers.